earlier than the schedule says here, or what the calendar says. And I'm doing this because I tried to go live at around 5 o'clock, and the connection just cut us, or cut the live. So I'm going a little bit earlier to test run the whole thing to see if it's actually fine, if the issue has been resolved now. I hope it is. So let's see how that goes. Let's just give it a few minutes and see what's going on there. We are a little bit early because I tried to start at 5, but the connection just cut us. So I had to go out and schedule for 5:30. So I'm testing to see if this actually, the connection is okay, if we'll be able to remain on the live until we are done with the transmission. Let's see. We'll start at 5:30. We'll start in 3 minutes time. Om Pum Purvasvam. Om Pum Purvasvam. Om Pum Purvasvam. Om Purvasvam Tatsavrituvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dimahi Dio Yona Prachodaya Om Purvasvaha Tatsavrituvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dimahi Dio Yona Prachodaya Om Purvasvaha Tatsavrituvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dimahi Dio Yona Prachodaya. All right, so that was today's way of centering ourselves in the presence, welcoming the divine presence of God, the great, beautiful, wonderful light, divine light of God, the light of the world. All right. So today we are going to be talking about loneliness and isolation. All right. And yeah, this is another bed duo. Okay. So this is another bed duo. Yesterday we did, what's this? We did anxiety and depression. That's a bed duo. So today we are doing another bed duo, which is loneliness and isolation. All right. So let's just dive right into it because there's quite a bit that we have to unpack. So, what is loneliness and isolation to begin with? Firstly, it is an inner state of disconnection, a state of feeling a deep sense of abandonment, feeling lost, alone. And this feeling is pervasive. All right. So you feel it, you feel this loneliness and isolation, whether or not you are around people. Okay. So it feels like death, in that you feel like you're a ghost when you are in this particular state. You feel as if you are here but not really here. You feel like you are present but not really present. You feel like you are floating outside of yourself. You feel like you have been exiled from your own life or your own self, your own reality. So that's why it feels like death, because there's that very, very strong sense of disconnection. It feels like hell as well, because you feel disconnected. So you feel disconnected from God, from yourself. Your joy is gone, your hope is gone, your peace is gone, everything is dull. Your existence feels painful because you are not able to connect to anything that's in your life. You're not able to connect to anything that you are doing. You're not even able to connect to yourself. So it's like there's this 5-meter thick wall between yourself and life. So that's what loneliness and isolation is. And so, what causes it? What causes loneliness and isolation is disconnection. All right. That's why it feels like disconnection. It's because, it is disconnection in it, and it's caused by disconnection from ourselves, disconnection from God, from life, disconnection from reality. And why are we feeling disconnected? Because of narcissistic abuse, of course. All right. Because of narcissistic abuse and all other things related to it, directly or indirectly, narcissistic abuse creates the wound of disconnection, which we then interpret as loneliness and isolation. Because when you are in this state, you feel like you have been exiled to an island. That's how it feels like. It feels like you have been exiled to an island where you, as the ghost, are condemned to basically exist there in isolation. All right. So, this is what narcissistic abuse does. And as I said, this is something that can be directly or indirectly related to narcissistic abuse. For example, you've lost a loved one. It's related to narcissistic abuse. All right. It's related to the narcissistic dark matrix in some shape or form. All right. And yes, there are a whole lot of other reasons. Why is it that people pass on? Yes, of course. But I haven't found any situation in this world, any tragedy in this world that is not related to the narcissistic dark matrix or narcissism in some shape or form. You understand? So this is how pervasive this whole narcissism is, because remember, you're not just dealing with people, but you are dealing with a spiritual current. You are dealing with a spiritual force. All right. And, it is absolutely in charge of this world that has been created by its human hosts. You understand? And then that's why we call it the narcissistic dark matrix. I haven't found any tragedy in this world that is not directly or indirectly related to it, even if it's something that perhaps, it was part of someone's karma. Maybe it was, something that they and their higher self had agreed upon, that, that thing would happen. Maybe it's something that, God is somehow, allowing to happen so that it can serve a higher purpose. Or maybe it's something that God is even allowing to happen or making happen. It's like, either way, the parties that are going to be involved in the, carrying out of that tragedy, the narcissists are going to be involved. The narcissistic dark matrix is going to be involved somehow. You understand? So, whatever it is that you are going through as a result of, loneliness and isolation, it's directly or indirectly related to the narcissistic dark matrix and narcissism. And I'm going to show you why and how as we go along. So, and when I'm telling you that I've looked and I haven't found anything that's not related to these two things, narcissism and narcissistic dark matrix, I've been looking for over 30 years. All right. So I accepted my, spiritual calling about 12 years or so ago, or more than that. But I've been on this journey, on, this research for over 30 years. All right. So I've been observing, I've been researching, I've been looking, I've been studying, I've been taking notes. And so, yeah, that's basically, one of the conclusions that I've come to. Most people are suffering from narcissistic abuse and they don't even know it. All right. Most people are, even narcissists, are suffering from narcissistic abuse and they don't even know it. Because remember, the narcissistic dark matrix is a dog-eat-dog world. All right. The narcissistic matrix, even though it might have special preference for narcissists, And, there might be some things that they are able to get away with more so than any other group of people. But the narcissistic dark matrix, which is really a byproduct of the demonic, entity we call the devil or Satan or the Antichrist, doesn't really have friends per se. You understand? That's why I always say the devil does not have friends. So even narcissists themselves, being part of the narcissistic dark matrix and the narcissistic dark matrix being designed for them, they still suffer from the narcissistic dark matrix. We all know narcissists that are really suffering. Not every narcissist is really living, this wonderful high and mighty life. Most narcissists suffer like any other person in the narcissistic dark matrix. You understand? And this is not for us to now start feeling sorry for them and start considering them as one of us per se. But, that's just the point that is there. And we are just basically becoming aware of it, or, making note of it. All right. So that's why, things like the religious cults, spiritual cults, all this group cult type of settings where people are basically organized because of one particular belief or something that they all have in common, and they are, vehemently just pursuing that thing, and usually it's a cause against something else. And it's like that's where they get to connect with other people, like-minded people, and they get to carry out some agenda against something. And so they get to really release all their anger. They get to unleash all of that against whoever it is that their movement would be against. You understand? For example, if they are part of a religion, they'll be hating on those that are not part of that religion. And then if they are part of, a political group, they'll be hating on those that are part of the opposing political group, and so on and so forth. So that's how it works in the narcissistic dark matrix. Because outside of this organized type of groups, the narcissistic dark matrix on its own is a dog eat dog world. You understand? So this kind of environments, the cults, they serve as a refuge for narcissists like that. So, the result of this prevalence of narcissistic abuse in our world is really, especially for a human being, is that they enter into an alternate reality, this dull gray world. That's what happens there. And it creates dissociation because it's an alternate world. It's not reality. It's not a real world. So it creates dissociation. You are being disconnected. You are being dissociated from your real self. All right. And of course, after a while, it hurts. It hurts. This level of dissociation hurts because it's a form of death. When you are being narcissistically abused, your real self is sacrificed by the narcissist in exchange for a false self that worships the narcissist's false image. You understand? So, meaning you take on a false image and disconnect from your true self. That's that spiritual form of death. And then it's the only way you get to have a relationship with the narcissist in the dark narcissistic matrix. You won't deal with narcissists outside of the narcissistic dark matrix, because narcissists are a byproduct as well of the narcissist. They are a manifestation, a human manifestation of a system, which is, it's part of everything else, but it's also a spiritual system as well. All right. So the only way you are able to connect with narcissists and to have a relationship with them is if you sacrifice your true self and embrace a false image. Why? Because remember, a narcissist is a false self. They've sacrificed their true selves. And so they need you. They require you. They demand. They expect you. They coerce and induce you, manipulate you into sacrificing your own true self as well. You understand? And so now imagine a child in that type of a situation. Imagine as a child, being born into a narcissistic environment, being born to narcissistic parents, where from get-go you just don't have a chance. Your true self doesn't have a chance because it gets beaten out of you by the narcissistic parent. Whether it's literal, beatings, hidings, or it's a psychological beating down, one way or the other, the narcissistic parent will absolutely destroy yourself, your false self. They will wage war against it. And of course, they will normalize it. They will, entrain you. They will program you into believing that that is normal. And I know I mentioned previously in my other video that, and it sounded like a contradiction because I said that empaths cannot be programmed. And then in another breath, I did mention that, empaths actually, you do find yourself having to deal as a normal human being and an empath having to, undo a whole lot of programming. So, and the reason why I was saying that you don't get programmed, as you can't get programmed as an empath, is that even though you've taken on the programs, you malfunction and they malfunction. So they don't work as effectively in you as they would in any other person. You understand? So the narcissistic programs in an empath, even though you might receive those programs and you might be believing and seeing yourself and life and all of that according to what the narcissist wants you to see. However, you will malfunction and there will be something within you that will be very clear that something is very, very wrong. You will feel it. You will feel within yourself that something is really wrong, and you will want to figure out how is it that you can correct that error. So that's what I mean when I say that the programs don't hold an empath. You understand? Because an empath will feel it, because all of that will be in direct conflict with who the empath really is, all those programming. And so there will be such an internal conflict within an empath that they're going to have to, one way or the other, let go of those narcissistic programs that they may have taken on, because they're really, not, they're creating discord and chaos within the psyche of that empath. So let's have a look here. So now, as a child, you are induced into this compromise very early on, and it's a form of spiritual death, as well, as I previously mentioned. All right. So this is how the narcissist operates. This is how the narcissistic dark matrix also operates. They need you to basically forego your true self, your truth, your authenticity, your reality, in order to participate in them. All right. So in order to be part of the narcissistic dark matrix, you definitely need to you need to abandon yourself. You need to disconnect from yourself. The narcissist and the narcissistic matrix do not and cannot really interact with wholesome human beings. All right. It can only interact with, illusory beings, or people who have sacrificed some form of themselves in some shape or form. Who have sacrificed themselves in some shape or form. All right, just like with anxiety and depression, narcissists are the cause of loneliness and isolation. All right. So, of course, narcissist apologists will say, okay, fine, there we go again, blaming narcissists for everything. Why don't people take responsibility for their own behavior, for their own actions, and for everything that's happening to them? Why is it that everything should be blamed on narcissists? Well, yeah, there's nothing wrong with, looking at one or two things that you might have done to contribute to a situation. But in the same way that, you will not blame a rape victim for being raped, why is it that victims of narcissists should be blamed for being narcissistically abused? Because a narcissist is a predator. So why is it that you would blame the prey for being preyed upon by the predator? When it comes to other forms of abuse, the victims get their validation. Why is it that victims of narcissism should not get their validation? The narcissistic dark matrix victimizes people every day. And at the same time, the narcissistic dark matrix blames those people. I don't know if you've, had a look or had a listen at the news, perhaps, or some kind of, mainstream media program or something to that effect. You'll note that there's so much of blaming of the population for a lot of things that the narcissistic dark matrix has actually done. The narcissistic dark matrix will do things to human beings, and then instead of taking accountability and responsibility and fixing the problem, of course, but in what world do narcissists take accountability? In what world does the narcissistic stream of consciousness take responsibility for anything? All right. So this is not anyone blaming narcissists for everything. This is us pointing out a spiritual fact. If you are born in a narcissistic system, how on earth is it your fault that you have taken on narcissistic programs? How on earth is it your fault that you find yourself in situations where you've entered into romantic relationships with narcissists because that's what you know as normal? And then you are being abused by those. How is it your fault? So there's a bit of a, I don't know, hypocrisy and double standards and all sorts of strange things that, I find with, what do you call this, apologists for narcissists. And yes, ultimately, any healthy, wholesome human being going through a healthy, wholesome healing program will get an opportunity to reflect, the contribution, that the part that they are playing with regards to whatever abuse that they would have been experiencing or that they would be experiencing from a narcissist. But we should not undermine and very powerful nature of the narcissistic stream of consciousness and the demons that work behind it. All right. So we should not be undermining that. We should not be acting here as if, everything is just fine and people are panicking for no reason. So the root cause of loneliness and isolation. Okay, let's see that. So why does the narcissistic stream seek to disconnect humanity from itself, from God, from life, and from reality? Well, to sustain itself. The narcissistic stream of consciousness needs to do this to sustain itself, all right, to validate its non-existence, into existence. So the narcissist needs some convincing, because this is a fragile false self that the narcissist worships, that the narcissist embraces as themselves. And the narcissistic dark matrix is a very, very fragile system. That's why it goes into so much length to, make sure that it keeps the population in that hypnotic state, basically, because any small mistake, everything can just crumble. It's a house of cards. Anything can just crumble at any point. You understand? So it's very simple. It does this to validate. So to sustain itself, it needs people who will play along. You understand it? The narcissistic dark matrix really reminds me of that situation with the Queen of Hearts in that movie Alice in Wonderland. I know Alice in Wonderland, there's a whole lot of, issues about it with MK Ultra and all of those things. And once again, it's how the narcissistic dark matrix perverts every single thing. Because of course, Alice in Wonderland can really be seen in many, many ways. And there are many lessons that can be, observed from that fairy tale. But unfortunately, to many people, the myth or the fairy tale of Alice in Wonderland becomes a trigger. It becomes a trigger for something that reminds them, of the level of evil that exists in the narcissistic dark matrix. But unfortunately, all of that happens, and the cost of it is that we lose out on the benefit that we're supposed to be obtaining from this these fairy tales, these myths, because there are spiritual jewels that we are supposed to be obtaining from there. So in Alice in Wonderland, we've got this Queen of Hearts, and she's just an unreasonable person, and really her whole world is a facade. It's fake. It's nothing makes sense in her world, and any slight mistake, basically everyone is required to validate the queen's fantasies about whatever madness that she's really dealing with. Whatever madness that this queen is dealing with, everyone is supposed to validate that, is supposed to pretend as if everything makes sense, pretend as if everything is all right, pretend as if she's not mad. And everyone is supposed to tiptoe around her, because if they do not tiptoe around her, of course it's off with your head, isn't it? And that's how the narcissistic dark matrix operates, and that's how narcissists operate as well. All right, so let's look here, a little bit of background with regards to the this whole narcissistic dark matrix, the narcissistic stream of consciousness, basically the antichrist stream of consciousness, how it operates and how it's been operating, from ancient times up until now, and also how it basically works against humanity, so that we can understand why is it that this loneliness and isolation has become one of the tools that the narcissistic dark matrix and the narcissistic stream of consciousness is using to basically imprison humanity from a psychological, spiritual perspective. All right, so this antichrist stream of consciousness, which is narcissism, it always opposes the Christ stream of consciousness. All right, so every single thing that the Christ stream of consciousness is doing, this narcissistic or antichrist stream of consciousness will go against it. But it never does it in a way where it's very obvious what it's doing. Many a times how it operates is through infiltration. So the narcissistic or the antichrist stream of consciousness will come across as if it is part of the Christ consciousness. But when you dig deep enough, you will notice that all it is infiltration. It's infiltration. The narcissistic stream of consciousness infiltrates the Christ stream of consciousness, just so that it can then begin to extract whatever information that it needs to extract, and then basically sabotage the mission of the Christ conscious stream. So now the Christ consciousness stream of evolution of consciousness has been directing evolution for humanity forever since we existed, you understand, since time immemorial. And so what's been happening, for example, and so this is a very important point with regards to understanding why this loneliness and isolation thing now. So from time immemorial up until that point where Jesus Christ came on earth. So now we're talking about all the way from I do beg your pardon. So from the time of Lemuria, even prior to Lemuria, but let's just start with Lemuria, because that's when we were starting to, be actuals somewhat, I wouldn't say physical, but we were becoming physical as human beings. We were slowly but surely becoming the people that we are now. And so since that time, all the way, from Atlantis, from Lemuria, Atlantis, the Indian era, the Egyptian era, the Greco-Latin era, and the Roman era, that time. Since then, up until the point where Jesus Christ came on earth, the impulse, how the Christ stream of consciousness was working, is that it was working through the folk spirit, the hive mind, if we should put it that way, the tribal mind. So human beings were a tribe. Human beings operated as a tribe because the angelic spirits that were in charge of humanity at the time were folk spirits, were, the Akai. That's what we call them. So these are, spirits that are in charge of groups basically, and then they direct the evolution and the development, spiritual development of groups, you understand. So during that time, the lesson was cooperation. The what we were extracting from that era, over and above all other lessons that we were learning at the time, was how to cooperate in a tribe, in a group setting, how to be part of a group. That's what we were learning. All right. And once the Christ came, all of that came to an end, because now our salvation was no longer dependent on the group. Our salvation was no longer aligned, together with our karma, was no longer tied to the group, to the race, to the nation. It was now tied to the inner Christ. So it was all between us and the inner Christ. So it was all between us and God from within. And so, what the Antichrist stream of consciousness did was that during the time when humanity was supposed to be operating from a tribal consciousness state, it came and caused and created this chaos where certain people found themselves operating from an individualistic state. You understand? So they basically were operating at a timeline that has not yet arrived. They were operating from the spirit of a timeline that is yet to come. So they were going against the tides, basically. So that's what the Antichrist stream of consciousness did. So once again, what is it doing? Opposing the Christ stream of consciousness. So the lesson now is that we are supposed to be learning how to be a tribe. This is, Lemuria up until the time of Jesus Christ. The lesson there was how to operate as a group, how to learn how to be part of a group, how to follow spirit, right? That was the lesson there. But what did the Antichrist stream of consciousness do? The opposite. All right. Promoted individualism, promote selfishness, promoted, the need for one person to basically prosper all by themselves apart from others. All right. And then once Christ came, the whole thing of tribalism came to an end. All right. That is because we had reached that darkest and most densest point of our evolution, and that is the point where we get to individualize. So we were a tribe, we were part of a group, we were a collective, we were thinking in one mind, we had one mind. At some point, like, we literally had one mind, like we were all, whatever it is that you were thinking, you were not thinking alone, you were thinking with the group. You didn't have your own individuality. But then the time came where we had to have our own individuality. And that time has been there since Christ. All right. And so it started, I'm sure, I believe it did start before Christ came, but what solidified it, what put a stamp on it, was, that mystery of Golgotha, what happened with Christ, that crucifixion. All right. So from then onward, we all had to work with our own inner Christ. We all had to work with the Christ impulse from an individual perspective. So we all had to individually work out our salvation with fear and trembling. All right. So this doesn't mean you are not part of a group, or you don't belong to a group, or you don't participate in a group. You still, do those things. You are still part of a family. You are still part of this and that and that. But you're not drawing your consciousness from that anymore. You are not deriving your sense of self from that anymore. You are an individualized entity. And what you are cultivating and developing within yourself is sovereignty. You understand? Is your own inner divinity. What you are cultivating and developing there is your own individual relationship with the divine. You are becoming Christed yourself. You are spiritualizing. So you are literally, becoming that soul that has you are ascending basically as an individual. You understand? So now your karma is your individual karma, is not necessarily the karma of your group, So meaning, whatever karma that you might have that might be tied to the group, you can work out your part you understand, together with the Christ. So it's no longer, for example, if you die now, you can't go to God and say, oh no, I fell short with my divine mission because of the group karma, or because of what the group was doing, or because the collective was going this direction, so I was going the direction where the collective was going. Was what really happens there is that you are expected to be individually working out your own salvation with the Christ, through the Christ. You understand? And so you are no longer waiting for anyone externally to help you. But now, what are the narcissistic forces doing? What is the antichrist force doing? The opposite. Now more than ever, now that we are supposed to be spiritualizing and individualizing, you know, overcoming and transcending that hive mind, now more than ever, we are dealing with a problem of the hive mind. All right, that's what we are dealing with. You know, we are dealing with this whole tribalism situation in 2024. We are dealing with racism. We are dealing with, people grouping themselves against each other. We are dealing with this whole new world order, which is really also a hive mind, because, it's all about the whole world operating and thinking and doing things the same way, and it's like, who has handed over the perception, that structure that humanity is now operating within or under? So yeah, the new world order is something that has always been here. It's not something that's still coming in the future. It's something that has always been here. All right. And the new world order, how do we know that it's always been here? Because the dollar bill says so. So as soon as that paper came called the dollar bill, and it had its own little pyramid, and it had its own little, saying there, that statement that says, this is our new world order, or whatever order that is. And, it has been blessed. God has blessed it. I don't know which God is this. Okay. Because that is only paper. It's not even real money. All right. Yeah, we use it and everything. It is what it is. But here we are calling out the facts of the situation. It's not even real money. And so another illusory bill, another illusory item that humanity is required to interact with. You understand? And so the New World Order is an illusory system, which is part of the narcissistic dark matrix. All right. And it's an illusory system because even its money is illusory, is not real. All right. Because it's got nothing backing it, and it's literally just paper, like literal paper. All right. So, and the paper says, we have successfully created a hive mind which is disconnected from reality, from itself, from life, and from God. Really, that's what that paper says there. Okay. Even the fact that, um, I think I've already covered the fact that, the dollar has nothing backing it up. It's nothing but papers. It speaks to the fact that, it is an illusory matrix. And so the narcissistic dark matrix and its demonic overlords, the narcissist and, whatever is left of you, is what creates this sense of loneliness and isolation. So now I've gone all the way around to just give you a background and understanding of what loneliness and isolation, the root cause of it, you understand. And you begin to see there that it's not as personal as you thought it was. All right. So, when you are caught in the clutches of that feeling, that sense of disconnection from self, from life, and from everything, you feel like the problem is you, there's something wrong with you. It feels so personal. But when you come out of that and you begin to realize the system that is at work within humanity, then you begin to understand that there are so many things that you are made to believe are unique to you, when in fact they are literally part of the collective programming within the narcissistic dark matrix. All right. It's a trap. It's is a thing. All right. So the narcissistic dark matrix subtly tells you who you are. And even the narcissist himself, that narcissist in your life that's, abusing and traumatizing you. They subtly, sometimes even overtly, they tell you who you are. And whoever it is that they're telling you you are is the opposite of who you really are. You understand? And then they tell you who you are not, of course. And usually who they're telling you you are not is who you really are. You are a divine human spirit, but they will try and make you think you are just, a number. You are a sheep in the, you are sheep number 100 and something in this huge, human farm. They tell you what and how the world is. And all of this are usually lies. You understand? They are constantly reframing your reality to disconnect you from yourself and to plug you into your sleeping pod so that you can be an energy source. All right, so this is what's happening there when you're dealing with loneliness and isolation. All right, so now how do you overcome loneliness and isolation? A lot of people that I deal with, in my spiritual practice and all of that, when they have not yet gone through the healing process, what happens is that they look at their lives and they see that, okay, fine, perhaps they don't have a lot of people supporting them, they don't have maybe a lot of friends, and of course their relationships are not working out. So they look at all of that and they assume that that means, there's something wrong with their lives, and that equals loneliness and isolation. All right. So now what we want to do as the first point to addressing loneliness and isolation is to reframe our perspective on it. All right. And of course, all of these things, they will work as a supplement to the healing and integration work. All right. Because if you just, work with the mind and not really work with the body and the spirit, it's not really going to, have the right kind of impact that it's supposed to be having in your life, in your body, in your consciousness. All right. So you want to reframe your perspective on loneliness and isolation. Loneliness is a symptom of trauma, particularly narcissistic abuse. And yes, you might be suffering that loneliness and isolation because of one or two things that might have happened in your life. But as I said, chances are there's narcissism related to it. And what you want to do is, whenever it is that you are feeling the loneliness and isolation, you want to understand that it's only a symptom of a wound, a psychological wound that you would have sustained. And also you need to understand that being alone does not mean being lonely, and vice versa. Being lonely doesn't necessarily equal the fact that you are alone. There are many people that are around each other, around other people, but they're very lonely. You understand? Because loneliness has nothing to do with company per se, whether you've got people or not that you are spending time with. It has to do with the quality of people that you are spending time with, and it also has to do with your state of mind. So now, if you're spending a lot of time with the narcissist, and of course, as long as you spend a lot of time with narcissists, your psyche becomes, distorted somehow. Of course, you're going to feel lonely and isolated, because narcissists, by their very nature, how they operate, how they engage with you, how they interact with other people, they create a sense of loneliness and isolation. Because narcissists, for example, if you try to confide in them about anything, they will make you feel like whatever problem you are dealing with, you are alone in that. And of course, at that moment, they might pretend to be comforting you, but whatever information you are giving them, they're going to, turn around and, use it against you. Make you remind you, quote unquote, remind how broken you are, remind you how weak you are, how much of help you need, remind you how that there's just so much wrong with you. You understand? So that creates loneliness and isolation. All right. So spending a lot of time around narcissists will definitely create that state of being. All right. But so you want to see it for what it is, rather than looking at it from that perspective where you are accepting the narrative that is handed to you by the narcissistic stream of consciousness. Okay. And so now the second thing you want to do is look at what has traumatized you. Look into what has traumatized you. you are grieving something, a loss, you maybe there's something negative that has occurred in your life. Look at it, and don't just look at it, from a surface level perspective. Go a little bit deeper. Go a little bit deeper and explore things like, you know are there any narcissists in your life right now who are taking advantage of whatever, vulnerabilities you might be dealing with as a result of whatever challenges you might be going through? So you every time you want to do some spiritual work, what you want to do is, the first thing you want to do as you do a spiritual work is do a cleansing. A company cleansing, kind of like a narcissist cleansing, right? You want to make sure that you are not dealing with narcissists, because any issue that you have, if you try to resolve it, but you are still having narcissists in your life, and especially playing a somewhat important role, you are likely not going to resolve the problem, because every time you take a step forward, narcissists will make sure that you take a few steps backwards as well. All right. So you look around and you see, okay, fine, this is the issue that I'm dealing with. And then, are there any narcissists having access to that issue? What role are they playing in that situation? All right. And then, because majority of the time they are there, I don't know anyone who doesn't have a few narcissists in their lives who are nicely, camouflaged and tucked in. All right. So you want to make sure that you are aware of that, and then you either remove them or you set some very clear boundaries. Okay. And you don't need to negotiate anything with anyone as an adult. You set, strong boundaries, and you move forward with your healing. All right. Because narcissists will reinforce the programs of the narcissistic dark matrix and invalidate whatever work that you are doing on healing and integration. All right. So you also want to look into, now that you've removed the external problems, you want to look into the dark narcissistic matrix programs that might be at work in your psyche. All right. So um, what programs are there that are working against you, that are disconnecting you from your true self, from life, and from God? Right. Number three, you want to also examine your general inner running programs. Are you really who you believe you are, or who you've been led to believe you are? This concept about who you are, where did you get it from? Who gave you that concept? Who told you that this is who you are? You understand? And then, are you really yourself? This person that you really think you are, is that really you? Who are you? And you don't have to have answers when it comes to who are you, immediately, but that's something that you can begin to explore. And then, of course, number four, you want to heal and integrate. Healing and integrate is actually the first thing that you are doing, and or you are doing it along with all these other things that I am mentioning here. All right. So you want to heal and integrate whatever it is that immediate pain that you are going through at that point in time. You want to, transmute it. You want to be present with it. You want to, transcend the negativity, whatever stuck energy you want to release. All right. So you want to remove those distorted programs, and you want to replace them with the truth of who you are. You want to basically remember who you are. That's what that integration work is all about. You want to remember who you are. Remember. So meaning you want to align with who God says you are. You want to align with the proper timeline. You understand? Remember that right now where we are not really supposed to be drawing our sense of self from groups. Okay. Or our sense of belonging, or our sense of worth, or a sense of acceptance, or a sense of validation from groups, external sources, whether it's a family, or especially if you're an adult, or a religious group. So basically you want to allow yourself to embrace this new perspective. And it's not new, but we'll say it's new because perhaps you've been approaching things differently. So you want to begin to embrace the fact that it's okay not to be part of the group. In faith, you are aligned. By not being part of the group, you are in alignment with the current timelines for ascension. All right, because you, if you are not finding the right kind of group for you to align yourself with, to belong to, and you are still, able to be your authentic individual self, if you're not finding that, then that means you might be needing to be walking this journey with the invisible forces of life. That means alone with them. You understand? So that means you might um just need to be drawing your entire sense of self from source, from God, from life. You understand? So it does not necessarily mean there's anything wrong. And so your healing, once you heal and integrate, does not necessarily mean that you will automatically, fall back into the groups that you were once part of. So if you were previously part of a group and for some strange reason, it's like, that's no longer working for you, or that's not happening at all, that's fine. That's fine. One of the biggest mistakes we make when it comes to our spiritual work is we assume that, you know, once we heal and integrate from whatever it is that would have been plaguing us, that means we get to go back to where we came out of before we started the healing work. And that means if we go back there, things will go back to, will basically be fine. For example, if we were in a toxic relationship with a particular group of people, somehow we assume that once we heal and integrate, that means we will be able to go back to those people and have a healthier relationship. Majority of the time, it's a no. You are not going to go back there. The best shot that you have is starting something new with other people. You understand, who are operating at the same wavelength as you are. All right. So those are the things that you wanna allow yourself that, give yourself that grace to walk that journey. The the fifth post-Atlantean epoch, which is where we are right now, basically this era after Christ, this is an era of individualization. This is an era of the individual. So the narcissistic dark matrix has programmed you and the masses to believe that when you are part of a group, you are okay, because it traumatizes human beings, it creates so much fear of being alone in us. Because remember, narcissists are afraid of being alone. So now narcissists project this fear on everyone else so that everyone should be afraid of being alone. So that anytime you are alone, it looks like there's something wrong. And yet, this is the point that I was trying to make, when I was saying previously that it's so important for us to understand the times and to understand how the Antichrist stream of consciousness operates. So now that we are supposed to be individuals, now that we're supposed to be sovereign entities, sovereign beings operating on our own unique, strength and blueprint and template from the Christ. Now that that's what's supposed to be happening, the greatest thing that is being pushed is being part of a hive. And then there's an attack, a subtle, covert, quiet attack against those who walk the path of solitude. Because it's like, what's wrong with you? There's something wrong with you. You are depressed if you're walking a path of solitude. And then you also attach that stigma, to yourself. And then now you have that fear of walking a path of solitude. Meanwhile, you are depriving yourself of an opportunity to be able to hear from the invisible forces. Because I can tell you one thing, when you are constantly in company of people, particularly narcissists, there's little to no chance of you hearing from the higher powers. Because human beings, by virtue of being part of the narcissistic dark matrix, they are constantly, if not, let's say majority of the time at best, in a state of discord, in a state of anxiety and depression. And majority of the time, people are not even aware that they are going through that. So, and when you are, trying to heal and integrate, or you are on your spiritual path, that interferes with whatever it is that you are dealing with. Because, wounded human beings would typically be looking for attention. They are not able to hold the space for you because they themselves need someone to hold space for them. So now you are either going to have to neglect yourself and hold space for others and not be able to focus on your journey. or you are just going to be dealing with people who, are just not adding any value towards your spiritual path. All right. So these are the things that you want to be aware of. These are the things that you want to embrace. You want to allow yourself to, consider as part of your spiritual path, your spiritual healing journey, and most importantly, your ascension. All right. So you are reframing your perception about loneliness and isolation. All right. So you are no longer seeing yourself as lonely and isolated. You might see yourself as going through a phase. You might see yourself as healing through, as a wounded soldier, healing through an experience that you might have had, a traumatic experience that you might have had. You might be seeing yourself as that, but you are not necessarily seeing yourself as lonely and isolated. You are clear. You are now back in touch with reality. You are aware that there are some wounds that you have sustained, and you are aware that you are busy healing them, or you are, on your own spiritual path and your own spiritual journey, discovering yourself, your unique blueprint. You are aware of that. All right. And then, so as you are doing that, you are taking yourself out of the narcissistic dark matrix. All right. And you are taking yourself out of an illusory existence and coming back. So the thing with the narcissistic dark matrix is that, to a certain extent, right, there'll be interaction with it and all of that. We cannot completely abandon the narcissistic dark matrix. But what you can do is limit its control over you and its effect over your psyche, its negative impact over your psyche. Right? You can limit its ability to thwart your spiritual growth, your spiritual ascension. You understand? That's what you can do. You can limit its ability to, traumatize and basically just harm you and use you as an energy source for its little minions. That's what you are doing. We're talking about the narcissist there. All right. So you bring yourself back into your body. So as you heal and integrate, you are bringing yourself back into your body. That's what you are doing. This is not an easy one, because, you know, once you go through a narcissistic trauma, what happens is, like, literally, there's grass, all, a lawn all the way, right? And then it's nice and smooth and soft and everything. And then as you go along, at a certain spot, instead of there being grass, is literally just a patch of land, of soil, rocky soil. You understand? And that patch of rocky soil is a very, very long patch. And, it's a very uncomfortable, horrible, dull, dry, painful path to walk on. And then it's just not nice, right? That's how loneliness, isolation, disconnection, that's how it feels, right? And so you want to allow it's that way because you are in an alternate reality. And then, so how you bring back the lawn into that dry patch of land, how to make a desert an oasis, right? That's what Jesus Christ said, I believe, or God, but this is a scriptural thing, how a desert is turned into, basically, spiritually and scripturally, deserts turn into an oasis. God does that. And how you do that is by inviting your presence into that discomfort, that disconnection. And how you do it is, remember, the feeling of disconnection, isolation, and loneliness has to do with the fact that you've been isolated from yourself in order to embrace a false reality that has been created by the narcissistic dark matrix and the narcissist in your life, that relationship that you were in, whoever it is that was the narcissist, and however it is that you were relating with them. You understand? That's what's causing that loneliness and disconnection and isolation. So now, when you begin to, how you resolve that disconnection is by coming back into your body. All right, being present in the body, allowing yourself to be present with yourself. All right. And how you do that is, doing that somatic healing work. And part of that is breathing into the body and being present with the body as you breathe, doing those diaphragmic breath work. All right. So you breathe into the body so that you can feel whatever discomfort that's there, so that your very presence, because your very presence is the presence of God. when you bring in the spirit by breathing, which is your presence, automatically that presence brings in the presence of God. All right. So by breathing into the body, you are bringing the presence of God. You are turning that desert into an oasis. In the beginning, it will hurt a little bit because there's still pain, there's disconnection, there are all sorts of, it's dry, it's a desert, you understand. But as you keep doing it, eventually it becomes an oasis. It becomes green, it becomes fertile, it becomes beautiful, and soon enough, it's a lovely, lovely, oasis. So it becomes okay. Body, it starts to be okay to be present with yourself. It's to be okay, all right, and to no longer need certain things, to no longer need to have someone to be part of your life in order to feel whole or to feel complete, you understand. So you don't transcend loneliness and isolation per se, and once again, there's nothing wrong with relating with people, but if you are not finding any particular person, anyone that you are really connecting with at a healthy level, just know that that's okay. That's something that the invisible forces of life have orchestrated or okayed so that you can then begin to commune with them. All right. So loneliness and isolation is not necessarily healed or overcome by trying to, be part of something or be in, people's company or being part of people per se. Because majority of the time, what happens is you run into narcissists who will cause even more damage. So what you do is you embrace the fact that it's okay. You embrace solitude. You heal and integrate and become a whole person on your own. All right. And then you become a self-generating force. You're able to draw from the Christ on your own. All right. And then so when you relate with other people, you're not doing it from that perspective where you need them to fill a gap, to take away your loneliness, to make you feel like you belong somewhere. But Christ becomes your sense of belonging. All right. So that's what you do. And then that's how you transcend the the loneliness and isolation. Okay, because then now when you have accepted and embraced solitude, no one can use solitude as a threat over you, you understand. Because of course narcissists use that. If narcissists are aware that you're afraid of being alone, and they almost always assume automatically that every human being is afraid of being alone, and so what they do is they abuse you because they know that you will stick around because you're afraid of being alone, you understand. So this is one of those things that becomes that initiation that you as a child of God want to embrace and take on, to say, okay, fine, so this is the challenge. I'm placed here between a rock and a hard place. It's either I sustain abuse or I walk a journey of solitude. Which one is it going to be? It's either I kill my. All right. So there was a bit of a position where I have to choose between basically my true self for the sake of opening a sense of belonging in the world, or choosing to basically walk a path of solitude, whatever fears that are associated with that, healing and integrating. Okay, so that becomes a choice that you have to make. And then when you choose the path of solitude, then you begin to understand how that it's not possible to be alone, not in this world. Like, like it's just not possible to be alone. Do you know how hard it is to actually be alone in this world? Like, it's so hard, it's not even funny. There are human beings everywhere. You understand? Like, everywhere there are human beings. They're always trying to get your attention in some shape or form. All right. They're always trying to, either talk to you or have some kind of a relationship with you, do something with you, through you, for you, with you. So there's no such thing as isolation and loneliness. It's an illusion which has been created by the narcissistic dark matrix when they disconnect you from your true self. All right. But when you allow yourself to embrace solitude, what happens is that you begin to realize, you have never been alone to begin with. You will never be alone. You will never ever be alone. Here's the thing. There will never be a situation like those are very rare occasions where there's someone who completely gets you, who understands you, who's able to go in a particular dark space with you. And unfortunately, where humanity is right now is that there are a lot of dark spaces that humanity is needing to go into to transcend those skeletons in the closet, the wounds, the trauma, I beg your pardon, that humanity has sustained over thousands of years. These are generational traumas. And so people are running away from that by trying to get, keep company with each other. But that's not healing the problem. That's not fixing the problem. It's not taking away the wound. It's not, resolving anything. It's just keeping you stuck. So you manage your expectations with regards to human beings. You know that when you're relating with human beings, what is it that you can expect from them? What is it that you cannot expect from them? Narcissists will never, ever embrace a journey of solitude to heal and integrate themselves. They might decide to isolate themselves a little bit to punish whoever it is that they're trying to punish, but they will never do it because they're trying to heal and integrate. They will always do it for some other ulterior motive, all right, but they'll always, avoid themselves because they have no self to really embrace. You understand? Their self has been sacrificed to the false image. All right. So this is your power. Your power is embracing solitude and reframing your understanding of, loneliness and isolation. Once you heal and integrate whatever traumas you have been dealing with that are causing disconnection, you will see you'll be okay to be alone. There's not going to be anything wrong because it's you. It's you. So who are you afraid of? Because it's only you there. There's no one else. It's only you there. So who are you afraid of? If you're afraid of being alone, that means you're afraid of yourself. So the question is, who are you that you are so afraid of? So you want to heal that person so that you are no longer afraid of her or him. And then once you heal that person, you'll see it's okay. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's amazing. You enjoy your own company. You are in great company in your own company. All right. And so when you are, trying to get that from the external world, you're not going to get it. It's a lie that has been sold to you by the narcissistic dark matrix, the antichrist who's trying to take you back in time, keep you stuck in that whole tribal hive mind type of mindset. All right. It's all a lie. It's a trap. It's a hoax, So I hope this, gives you the information, the right kind of information that you need. I don't know if I'll be able to do the second video that I wanted to do for today because I feel a little bit hungry. Like I feel like I want to eat. Initially, I had planned that I would, take a few minutes break, like 30 minutes, eat and then go back. But yeah, my body is really feeling the fact that, I've been doing this every day. And so let me not push it too far. I will come back when necessary to do that part 2 that I need to do for anxiety and depression. The part 2 will really be about offering solutions. It's actually not anxiety and depression, pardon me. It's part 2 of narcissistic cults, families, and religious systems, offering solutions. But yeah, that's really what I'll be doing. This has been so much fun. Like I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoy doing this so much. Oh my gosh. So I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you. And yeah, until next time, remember, consciousness is the new frontier. Namaste.